Part of the VAX team.
I am part of the VAX team now.
We love having you here. Johnny, you live on Autism Mothers?
Yeah, for about like 3 seconds now.
Good, but you're live, that's the main thing.
I'm live. I'm recording, rather.
And you're ready to go?
I'm rolling.
All right.
All good?
Here we go.
Okay. This
3,
is
2,
it.
1.
So first things, tell everyone who you are.
Hi, my name is Erin Richardson.
And this is a story about your boy, isn't it?
This is a story about my boy.
How many children do you
I
have?
have 2 boys, 8 and 12 now.
And this is a story about the eldest
My
child.
oldest child, yes.
Okay, so let's go right back to what you were thinking about with vaccines when you first found out you were pregnant. Did you have any opinion?
I had no opinion about vaccines, just do what the doctor says and stay healthy. That's all I knew, never thought to think any further past that.
And did you have any vaccines while you were pregnant?
I did not.
I don't
No.
think they were happening 12 years ago, were they?
No.
No, I was never asked to at that time, no.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay, so you give birth.
Yes.
And what happens? He's healthy?
He's healthy. We did have a traumatic birth, but he ended up being perfectly healthy and met all his milestones, developed perfectly well.
And was he vaccinated with Hep B and vitamin K?
We didn't have vitamin K. I think he did have Hep B, and we did follow the schedule mostly. There was a few that we delayed on just because he was sick at the time or something. So we had a few holes in it. We didn't follow completely, but pretty much stayed the course.
And so in his first year, what kind of a boy was he? Or actually, let's say up to, because it was 16 months that he was injured, wasn't it?
Correct,
So let's talk
16
about
months.
what was he like for the whole of the 16 months of his life?
Yeah, he was normal, beautiful baby boy. He moved, he crawled at the right time. He started walking at a year. He was social, bright. Mostly, he had a lot of troubles and needed to be held a lot, kind of a needy child. But he was my first, and I didn't find that to be abnormal and loved every minute of it, so it didn't
Chatting and
seem-
starting to talk at 16 months?
At 16 months, he was starting a little bit slow, and I just kept saying, he's a boy, it'll be fine. But he was a little slow on the speech from the get-go, yeah. But always expressive, and we always knew what he wanted.
And so at 16 months, do you know what vaccines he had?
He had the DTaP and H1N1 flu vaccine. I think he had the Hib. I think that's it. He didn't have the MMR at that time, but it was the DTaP was the big one.
All right, and so what happened to him?
He had his 16-month shots, and 2 days later we were eating dinner at my mom's house, and I can't remember what happened, but I must have been talking to him, and I realized that he was not responsive to me. And so I just started saying his name over and over, Sebastian, Sebastian, and getting frantic because I could just see this blank stare of my child. And finally he responded, and I looked over to my mom and my husband, and I said, "Did you see that?" And they all said, "Yes." We all noticed what had just happened. And I said, "What was that?" And nobody knew, and we just kind of like panicked, but then he seemed fine. And the night went on, and he seemed fine. Well, I took him to the doctor the next day, told him what happened, and oh, well, we don't know. Did he fall and hit his head? Did this happen? I mean, no, he didn't fall on his head. Nothing happened. We were eating dinner. We had a perfectly normal day. And so they did send us to a neurologist. And unfortunately, here in our town, there are no pediatric neurologists. So we sat in a neurologist's office for a very long time. Had EEGs, everything looked normal. They send us away. And it just kept happening. The blank stares, the non-reactive. And then it started getting more. He'd have, his face would tighten up, clench up. His body would stiffen. And he'd be non-responsive. And so this led to emergency room visit after emergency room visit of my child, something's wrong with my child. Finally, in one emergency room visit, a doctor put him on phenobarbital, which is a very strong drug. And at that point, keep going to our pediatrician, what's happening? I don't know. And I did have a gut feeling. Could it have been the vaccines? No. Something must have happened. Something else must have happened.
You actually asked, could it be the
I did,
vaccines? And
yeah.
the doctor said?
Oh, no, that doesn't happen. It must have been something else. He must have injured his head somehow.
Right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. But my gut kept saying there was nothing else different in his
So
life.
the mum is saying he hasn't injured his head, he hasn't had a fall. Well, could it be the vaccines? That's all he's had, and he's saying not the vaccines.
Yeah.
It must be his head.
Yes, absolutely not the vaccines.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yep. So we just kind of stayed the course, and then finally, I don't remember how long it was after having the seizures, and then we were on the phenobarbital, and they really weren't getting any better. And a couple big scares where I was driving, and I parked, and I look in the back, and he's totally out of it, and I go to pick him up, and he's limp, just a limp body of child, and I'm just freaking out, holding him in my arms, and he comes to, and then he would start having behavioral problems then, because afterwards he would be very angry, upset, crying a lot, having anger outbursts, hitting, pulling my hair, which was not like him. He was always just the happiest, brightest child. And then we started noticing, like in his pictures, he had dark circles, sunken eyes, and he just started looking different and acting different. And then his motor skills, his gross motor skills, fine motor skills, everything started falling behind. I couldn't let him walk without being right there. We couldn't go to the park without me being right there to catch him. That lasted till probably was 4 or 5, where I was always right there to catch him because he was unstable. I just couldn't trust that he wouldn't fall. So eventually we somehow, I don't remember, but our doctor finally, at my begging, let us go to a children's hospital in Madeira. And it was there that we got to see finally a pediatric neurologist. And that person said, yeah, it could have been a vaccine injury. And then I was like, oh my gosh, somebody said that. Somebody finally said that. Something that made sense to something that had no answers before. And so I kind of felt validated. But then it was, again, more testing, MRIs, 24-hour EEGs, my baby just sitting in the hospital all day, and nothing physically wrong with them. Nothing that they could pinpoint, put their fingers on, nothing that could help them. They did switch his medication. Well, first they were floored that the emergency doctor put him on phenobarbital. They're like, that causes developmental delays. Why would any doctor give that to a baby? So they weaned us off the phenobarbital because it's addictive and it was hard for him. And then they put us on another drug called Topamax, I believe. And that did start to control it a little bit. But with Topamax, you can't sweat, so you could get overheated. And here I was in Bakersfield in 100-degree weather with a baby, who at that time was in daycare, that I had to worry about overheating all the time. And so we stayed on that course for a while, and things did get better, and the seizures settled down. And eventually got to the point where we were able to wean off, and he stopped having the seizures. And I thought, we're done. We're done with this. But I'll have to say, even through all of that, even getting the recognition that it could have been vaccines, what did I still do? We still vaccinated.
So what was the next vaccines that you had?
We pretty much stayed the course. We spread him out. He didn't have he's only had 1 MMR, but we finished most of the DTaP. We finished most of the schedule. They just spread him out. I switched doctors, somebody else, and we just spread him out. And I didn't have any other grand reactions. But I don't know why I kept doing that either. I kept thinking you still had to do that for protection. The doctor still suggests I still do this. And I didn't know. I didn't educate. I didn't hear anybody else giving me any other information. I just didn't know anything about that there was another way to do it, honestly. All I could think of was, let's spread them out. We'll do them one at a time. We'll see what happens. Even the neurologist never said, don't stop, So I live with that guilt of not knowing better or doing better by my child. So we finally got to deny a vaccination this year for his 12-year-old shots. We got to deny the Tdap, and we got kicked out of our doctor's office for that. Same pediatrician.
You're out of there. Long last.
Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot of anybody else will take us here either, but it's okay. So now, as he's grown up, we thought we were out of the dark there, and he seemed to be doing okay. We entered school. He started having tics. And at first we weren't sure if we were having the seizures again because a lot of his seizures were facial scrunching and tightening or weird things. So the tics, most of them are facial too. And then he started having vocal, and then it got so bad that they diagnosed him with full-blown Tourette's at some point. And so that was getting hard at school for him. And then school was having problems, and now we had an ADHD diagnosis. And I was in class with them most of the time. I was able to be room mom. I got to be involved a lot. And then the year that I stopped being able to do that because I had to go back to work is when it all fell apart because the school couldn't handle him. The school couldn't. And it's not that he was a behavior problem. It was the sensory things for him, the noises in the class. Just everything was overwhelming for him when it got to be 3rd grade. He just shut down and stopped doing work. And I didn't know until it was too late, and he was failing out of school. And then I was working for his 504 and his IEP and working with the principal and pulling it all together, and to the point where I was like, I'm doing more. I should just take him out and educate him. And I did. So in 3rd grade, we pulled him out of school, and I started homeschooling him. I do have a master's in education and a teaching credential, so I felt I could do this. But I did work full-time too. I was a real estate agent, so I was doing both things. But I had him out, and things got better for him. He flourished. He didn't have anxiety over going to school. We could calm down the sensory issues. We could take care of whatever he needed, and he could get the schoolwork done and keep learning. And he's a very bright kid, extremely smart kid. It's just he needed the pathway to do that without all the distractions. And of course school wanted to medicate him, and I said, no more, we're not medicating this
It's
kid.
so dangerous, these schools.
No, I'm like, we're not doing it. And so
now what about your next son? So when did you, how many vaccines did he have?
he's had his full schedule as well, because we really didn't start learning about it till, I would say, really researching and learning for the past 4 years. And so,
And have you stopped vaccinating your children now?
yes, and we don't really give him any medications. We do see a naturopathic doctor, which has helped my son's tics and ADHD tremendously, as well as cleaning up our diet. So, yeah, we really don't go to the doctor for anything very often, so we
No
stay
way.
clear, yeah. And my younger one seems to be okay. We are going to get the genetic testing and just move forward with that. We live in California, so we always feel the pressure coming down to say, even though I homeschool them, you still feel you don't know what's going to come next, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, you sound like an amazing person, an amazing mom. You're fully on it.
no.
And,
So
and you
it took a
shouldn't
while.
feel guilty for what you did. I mean, I know we all do a little bit because we can't help it, but, you know, if you can't trust your doctor, well, you can't trust anyone really now, can you?
No. And that's, I think when you start learning that and getting that feeling that you can't, it's an overwhelming feeling, and that everything you thought you trusted before was not trustworthy. Kind of rocks your world, I guess.
If you were to have another baby, what would you do?
Nothing that I did before. Natural birth, no vaccines, boosting immune systems. I won't and I can't, but if I could, and I have friends who have babies, and luckily I'm in my homeschool. I'm telling other people, I feel like I'm in a bubble because I do homeschool and we have a lot of like-minded parents that we can talk about these things, which is good. And I've have a friend with babies who she's never vaccinated, and I love watching them flourish. I can see night and day difference between these completely unvaccinated kids and the ones who've had some or all. It's like night and day to me, and it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, this, is it? It's,
No.
It's really very obvious. You just open your eyes and you
is.
look at the unvaccinated, you look at the vaccinated, and it's plain as day.
And I love seeing her little boy just grow, and he's so bright and smart and social, beautiful. It's amazing. So
Well, you're a fantastic person, fantastic mum, and now, have you signed your children's names on the bus?
I haven't.
You want to do it?
Yes.
Let's go and do it.
Yay.
Periscope, what number are we on? Completely forgotten. I know that someone there. Where's my choosy mummy?
4736.
Six is the last digit. That's all
No,
I
we're
can
not
remember.
47 anything. We're in 844. Yes, thank you.
4836.
4835 was the last one. So you're 4836 and 4837.
Okay.
Right, let's go and do it.
Okay.
I'll take we are back. Oh, I just put my coat on my face and both I can
Oh. Cutting off blood circulation and then having it rush back.
You just hold that.
We'll hold that.
Okay, and then we have another story. We have you guys, so you guys can move on the sofa.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Hi. Sure.
Security again. Our second visit from security. We've moved twice. So we have to move. We've got a little IKEA situation on our hands. And I think you'll know what I mean by that. All right, let's go and sign the bus. Hopefully, here's a pen.
Okay. Let me give me 2 seconds here.
If you want to finish that.
Yeah. We're just gonna finish this last thing up. We're just gonna write one more thing on the table. Yeah, one more. So let's just can we finish up our last story? We're almost done. Cool.
Thank you. Thanks. Nice. I'm being thrown off with the okay. Yeah.
No, yeah. You,
yes, right. Yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry. Where are we going to go in it?
You don't need to go anywhere.
Think. We are in, where are we? What part of America are we in right now?
California?
Bakersfield,
No,
California.
what's Bakersfield? That's right, we're in Bakersfield.
Bakersfield.
Yeah, we're in Bakersfield.
Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Beautiful names as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Mwah.
appreciate all you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you for telling your story. Oh, pen. Yeah.
Thank you guys.